Hey everyone, welcome back to the Craft Parenting Podcast, the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Ludwig, and with me is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline. How's it going, Caroline?
I feel like you should call me Coffee because spring has sprung and there are tons of allergens in the air, so I have a cough. But in addition, we went to the Reds game last night with my coworkers and stayed out way later than usual, and I could use a lot of coffee.
Oh, well, maybe I should have grabbed you a coffee beer then.
I mean, I'm pretty happy with this beer. I did drink a whole one of these at the beginning of our recording of Shift Beers, and it might have been where the night started to go off the rails. I think deciding to record an episode with Shift Beers was where the night started to go off the rails.
Maybe.
But it was a lot of fun.
Possibly.
10 out of 10 would do again.
Well, we need to have them on our podcast.
I don't know. Do we have enough beeps?
Do we have enough beeps? Well, you have to ask the editor.
Yeah.
So we have another great show planned out this week. Kind of the opposite of coffee.
It is the opposite of coffee.
Because coffee makes you stay awake.
Though I've been told if you give toddlers caffeine, it makes them sleepy. I don't want to test that theory because there's a very good chance that people are just screwing with me with that theory. So,
I think that is a very strong possibility.
So we're just not even gonna try.
But we are going to talk about our bedtime routine and how it has evolved over time, through infancy.
To now sleeps in their own bed that they can get out of in the middle of the night.
Yes. So let's dive in and get started.
So, Hubs, I noticed that your drink looks absolutely nothing like my drink. What are you drinking?
Yeah, we are drinking complete opposites tonight. But I went to Higher Gravity in Summit Park the other week. There is this dad's thing. Hey.
Your can's bigger than mine. I haven't had this before.
So I went to Higher Gravity in Summit Park up in Blue Ash for a dad's night out. Shortly after, like the day after, you had a mom's night out.
Yes, we had some nice nights out in the same week.
So I got away from the west side for once and had some, I hung out with a bunch of dads of all varieties.
Mm-hmm. Did you make new friends?
Dads of older kids, dads of newborns, and everything in between. Yeah, we had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
We had some good beer. But I think I was the only one that actually went into the cooler and got some to-go beers.
Lame.
But I have no shame. I was going to go for the Helles Rauch beer by Listermann, which the Gnome had on the Weekly Pint recently.
Oh, is that the Weekly Pint that I missed because I was putting Lily to bed?
Yes. But this one caught my eye, and this is a vanilla Schwarzbier.
Oh, that sounds yummy. And actually, it is yummy because I just stole some of yours.
You were guzzling it down.
I took 2 sips, and they were not Shift Beer's drinking game sips.
Well, okay. So it's a German-style black lager with vanilla. I was also thinking about getting the normal Schwarzbier. And I saw, I've had many Schwarzbiers before. I don't know if I've had Listermann's necessarily, but I didn't even know they had a vanilla Schwarzbier, so it caught my eye.
I mean, I tried a juniper Schwarzbier last night, and that was pretty yummy.
Yeah. We went to Rebel Metal for the first time, and I will hopefully be writing a blog shortly.
Before or after your blog about Third Eye?
We'll see. This is a Schwarzbier. It's a lager, 5.5 ABV. I don't know that it has any IBUs.
According to Shift Beers, IBUs are made up and don't matter, so don't go off your IBUs.
Don't go off IBUs if you think, if you think super hoppy beers are high IBUs, that's not necessarily correct.
Yeah, it's not always the case.
But speaking of Asheville, I know we weren't speaking of Asheville, but
We weren't, but thanks for rubbing some salt in that wound.
Sierra Nevada brews a beer with 0 IBUs, but it's like super hoppy.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to break that. I think it's 0. It's either 0 or 100. And they made it do both.
They probably do both.
Yeah, to try to confuse people
Mm-hmm.
because people think that if it's a higher IBU, it's going to be super bitter and just, you're looking at a Christmas tree or something.
Yep.
Which I guess is sometimes the case, but it's not a rule.
No, it's a guide. It's not the end all be all of how hoppy that beer is going to taste.
But I do generally, I always say I like the multi beers,
Mm-hmm.
like the lagers and stuff. And I do gravitate towards lower IBUs, and I do use that as a kind of a guide as far as like, hey, what is this beer going to taste like, sort of thing. But
I just nodded like people could see me.
Yeah, but I don't like turn away from a beer because it has a high IBUs.
No, because like that West Side Triple
Yeah,
was really good.
that's probably an example
Mm-hmm.
of something that's like has super high IBUs, but it doesn't taste like it,
Yeah.
or how you would think. But yeah, this is good. I don't get a lot of vanilla out of this. Did you?
Not a whole lot. I did get something like other than Schwartz beer.
It's not as clean as I would like.
I don't know when they released this, so it might be that part of it is just the vanilla has started to fall off because your adjuncts fall off first.
I think they just released it.
I don't know.
I looked it up, but it said April 2022.
Oh.
What was the website that I looked it up at?
3 days later.
It was on Beer Advocate.
Ah.
I looked it up. It does say it was added to Beer Advocate on April 9th, 2022.
Okay. So it is probably something super recent.
But there is a kind of a bitter aftertaste to it, which is kind of unusual for a lager.
Mm-hmm.
But I dig it. It's good.
I'm a fan.
Meanwhile, what are you drinking? Complete opposite.
I am complete opposite. I am drinking an orange cream by March 1st. It is 6.1% ABV and 16 IBUs. Their description: session, clean, refreshing. A refreshing ale with a citrus twist. Orange and tangerine shine throughout. The zesty citrus is balanced with a creamy vanilla, making this beer quite a treat. It slaps.
Yeah. March 1st. I've never heard of them before. Are they local?
They're pretty local.
Yeah.
They mostly just do seltzer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is one of the few beers that they actually can.
Okay, nice. But in all seriousness, it's like you probably, I don't know if anyone can tell, we were totally joking. March 1st, cool brewery. They're up north.
They're a reason to cross over 75.
Yeah, pretty good reason. I enjoyed this beer as well.
Mm-hmm.
While
It
we
is
were-
definitely crushable. I will probably actually drink a whole beer before the end of the
Even though like the fruity beers are not really my style, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it's citrus. It's crisp and refreshing. It's not like super sweet.
Yeah, I think that's probably why.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what we are drinking. So now it is time for What's Bugging Caroline in Children's TV, where you, Caroline, tell us all about the lack of physics and logic and sense in children's television. So take it away. What is bugging you this week?
So today we're going to talk about Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, specifically Donald the Frog Prince. Because thanks to some bad food management, aka the professor conducting experiments in the kitchen of the clubhouse, Donald is now a frog. And the only way we can make Donald no longer be a frog is if he gets kissed by a princess, who's Daisy, for the sake of this episode. But we have to go find Daisy. She's locked in a tall tower, but she's using some really cool yarn where the stripes are perpendicular to the way that she's knitting. I would like this yarn. I'm pretty sure that I've talked about wanting this yarn on the show before. Maybe I've talked about this before. I don't know. This episode still bugs me though, because we have to find the tower that Daisy is in, and it's the tallest tower. And they show us 3 towers at different points away from us, where if you take into account perspective, I'm like 95% sure all of the towers are the same size. Like Daisy's tower is not the tallest, but they say, oh, this one's the tallest.
Because it's the furthest back or something.
Because it's the closest one to them.
That's the closest one.
Because the other ones are further away, so they look smaller.
Yeah, that bugged me as well, because I was watching that with everyone. I don't know, for some reason I was watching it. I'm usually the one who cleans up from dinner while the kids are getting ready for bed
and piled on top of me to watch TV, because the only way they can watch TV is physically touching me, if not on top of me.
But I was watching this as well, and I was really bugged about this. And one could argue that a bunch of artists, writers, blah blah blah, they're artistic, they're not scientists.
They literally teach this in art class.
Exactly. Like if you are an animator, that's animation 101, I would imagine. Perspective.
I mean, because the other thing too, like thinking of it as somebody who doesn't necessarily know what like small, medium, and large is, make the differences in the towers super obvious. So like one of them is big enough for a mouse, and the other one might be like big enough for a cat. And then you have a super big tower that's meant for people. Like make it super dramatic so we can learn about small, medium, and huge.
One could be for Willie the Giant.
Yeah, and then his would be the biggest tower. But yeah, sometimes I don't think that they do a good job of explaining the size difference of objects that are far away from you. And it bothers me. Yeah,
it's a TV show where it's supposed to be teaching stuff, and they didn't even teach it correctly.
No, they didn't.
And if this is too complicated, make it simpler. Like, this was like a editorial choice.
Yeah, like make it very obvious instead of mildly obvious.
All right. Is that everything that's bugging you this week?
That is what is bugging me this week. I still really want that yarn. I mean, they do make yarn that like you can knit in the round and it makes flowers because of the pattern in the yarn.
Yeah.
I need to buy that yarn too, but I need to use some of the yarn that I already have before I go buy more yarn.
I agree. You do not look like you agree.
Mama needs a box of wine. Patreon members will tell that I do not agree with that statement.
And they will also see that you stole my hoodie.
It is our hoodie.
Oh, no.
When we got married, everything became ours.
Uh-huh.
What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine.
Yeah, except I can't fit in your stuff.
That's not my problem.
All right, so now on to the main topic of this week's episode, which is all about our bedtime routine and how it has evolved over the last 2 years as we've grown as a family.
Yes. So we don't have a set bedtime routine. Like the kids don't get baths every night. We don't do the exact same things every night, but we keep the energy consistent for the most part. And like we kind of do the same things.
I would argue that they don't get a bath every night, but we have a set bath night.
Yeah. So like talking to other parents, some parents just kind of bathe their kids whenever they remember. We did that for a hot second, and then we said, no, we have to come up with specific days of the week, because when was the last time the kid got a bath? I think it's been a week. We probably need to give her a bath. So we said, okay, these 3 days are always going to be bath night. But like other people will give their kids a bath every night because a bath is part of their bedtime routine. They finish dinner, they get a bath, they get in their jammies, they read a story, they get their milk, and then they go to bed. And it's very structured every night.
Yeah. We're pretty structured.
We're relatively structured. We finish dinner, we wash up, we get in our jammies, and then we watch half an hour of something. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Scooby-Doo, Reading Rainbow.
We haven't watched Reading Rainbow in a while.
It's been a long while since we've watched Reading Rainbow.
I think it's too advanced for Elliot.
A little bit. We have evolved their bedtime routine over time. So we're going to go through Lily as a newborn and then Elliot as a newborn, and then we'll just go through phases of their lives. So when Lily was a newborn, we had no idea what we were doing.
Zero idea.
Zero.
As is normal for new parents.
We had some assistance from the NICU in regards to putting her on a schedule of eating every 3-ish hours, but she didn't really have a bedtime. We didn't know when her bedtime should be. So we just we had a bassinet next to the bed and a crib in her room that she would sometimes use for naps. But we would just kind of be like, well, I guess we'll put you to bed at 10 because that's when we go to bed. And it did not super work out. And then eventually we realized if we started putting her to bed closer to 8, she did a lot better. So we would put Lily to bed at 8. We would be able to do a few things and then put ourselves to bed. And then because the NICU had us on a schedule feeding her every 3-ish hours, I would have an alarm that would go off at 11. Or I would just wait to go to bed until after I fed her at 11. And then eventually, Lily and myself would snooze through those alarms. So the 3 hours would turn into 4 hours because I'd hit the snooze 6 times. And then Lily would wake up. So then we would both wake up, change her diaper, get her a snack, and put her back to bed. And then I just gave up on the alarms because she was waking up whenever she was hungry. And I was just snoozing through everything. So it was not effective.
I mean, you were snoozing through maybe when she was 2 months. It's not like you were neglecting a new 2-week-old baby.
No, if she started crying because she woke up and she was hungry, I would get up and I would help her. But if it was my alarm had gone off because she had fallen asleep 3 hours previously, I would probably hit snooze 4 times because I was not ready to get up yet. And then we would both wake up after a half hour to an hour of my alarm going off. So she started I realized that she was on a schedule. She had started to put herself on a little schedule. And I was like, sweet, these alarms can go away now.
And you ignored the alarms, realizing that she was aware enough to cry when she was hungry.
Yeah, and she was literally right next to my face.
Well, some kids don't wake up even when they're hungry,
Well, some kids you can dream feed, where you don't even wake them up. You just feed them a meal and let them keep sleeping.
That's weird.
It is a thing.
Okay, well, but you did mention the NICU. The first 2 weeks of Lily's life, she was in the NICU.
Yeah, she wanted for nothing because she had 24/7 care.
Right, and we were there, obviously, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
12 hours, 8 to 10. That's more than 12 hours, but we would leave for lunch and stuff.
We were there until they yelled at us to go home.
Yeah, basically. But every 3 hours, she would, they called it, what did they call it? Her care?
Yeah, she would have her
diaper changed, feed.
Mm-hmm.
Every Tuesday, Thursday was sponge bath.
Yep. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think hers was Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah, because we kept that bath schedule.
Yeah. Once we realized that we needed to keep a bath schedule. And then at the beginning, she didn't really have any kind of nap time routine. So she would just fall asleep playing on one of her mats. And I'd be like, oh, you fell asleep. Okay. Mama's going to go over to this corner of the room and do something and then check on you, and go to this corner of the room and do something and then go check on you. And she would also nap in her swing or her bouncer a lot. She really liked doing that. We would put her in swaddles for bedtime, but not really during the day at all. And we were terrible at telling when she was tired for the first month of life. So it's just oh, yeah, you passed out in the middle of the living room. Sweet. Let me know when you're hungry because you'll wake up.
Once we got into a routine, she pretty much slept right away, but I do remember rocking her a lot.
Yeah, you walked around with her a lot in the kitchen, playing some baby Metallica.
Yeah, I purchased some baby Metallica, which is Metallica music. Metallica is a heavy metal band. Someone took the music.
Made it sound like nursery rhyme kind of music.
Yeah, they arranged it so that it was that's soft rock basically
with no drums. So not really soft rock, just soft sleepy music.
Yeah, it's nursery rhymes, like you were saying. So I would have my phone in my pocket and we would walk around the kitchen in the dark trying to get her to sleep. I remember doing that a lot.
Yeah, because we didn't know her We didn't know her cues and we didn't know her routine.
We watched Phineas and Ferb.
She really liked Phineas and Ferb. I think because the songs are really fun and the show is very geometric and colorful.
Yeah.
So it's something that her little brain can kind of take.
We haven't watched it since, really.
No, we haven't. We should pull that one out again. That's a fun show. And when Lily was about 2 months old, I realized that I needed to start thinking about how I was going to go back to work and how I was going to get things done around the house so I could go back to work, and realized that I really needed her to nap in her crib more than she was currently napping on my chest and in her swing. But she would wake up as soon as I put her down in her crib because she liked being in the swing or on my chest way more. Who knows why? I mean, maybe no sense. Babies don't want to be attached to you all of the time. Crazy talk. But eventually I realized that I could put her in the sleep sacks during nap time too. And it was a total game changer and a sanity saver. Because it's just swaddle, swaddle, put in crib, and she's out. So I finally got to be able to do stuff while she took naps. And she kind of had like a 3-ish nap a day schedule. Maybe even 4-ish naps a day at that point. The surprising thing for me was that we had the bedside bassinet, and Lily kicked herself out of the bassinet at about 3 months old because she wanted to roll over while she slept, and the bassinet would not allow her to do that because there wasn't enough space for her to get in a full roll. So I was like, well, I guess we'll try and let her sleep in her crib. And she pretty much slept through the night the first night we put her in her crib. Like, to the point that I got up like 3 times in the middle of the night to like put a hand on her chest to make sure that she was okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're really quiet. You're really calm. So she loved it. And then the next few nights, she woke up a time or two. We probably had a month-ish, maybe, of her waking up once in the middle of the night in her crib. So we go in, change her diaper, feed her, put her back to bed. But then she just kind of started sleeping through the night, all on her own. And it was really nice.
And that is not typical.
It is not typical.
Although with our kids, it's...
Yeah. So recently I learned that kids don't start making their own melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you sleep, until they're about 2 months old, which seems on track with our experiences because naps would get longer and more consistent, and bedtime got more consistent as well. So they say, like, since kids can't make their own melatonin, you have to give them a like more calm, quiet, dark sleep environment. So they'll try to sleep longer before their bodies start making melatonin, so they get those longer stretches of sleep.
And speaking of the environment, do you want to talk about some of the stuff that we use?
Yeah. So when they were sleeping in the bed in our bedroom with the bassinet, we had a nightlight, but we didn't have any noise machines. But when they slept in their own rooms, they had a nightlight and a noise machine. The noise machine that we used when they were really young is a white noise machine, that just does like a shh. And then Lily, she has a noise machine now that does music or sounds. It has traffic, which to me, I'm like, I don't want to listen to traffic to fall asleep.
Yeah.
We have hers on like a heartbeat whooshy kind of sound.
Yeah.
But there's also music, so she can listen to piano, which she likes to do that sometimes. She likes to do that sometimes for her naps. Sometimes she wants to do it for bedtime too.
And she'll go over and push the button.
Yes, she will go over and push the button and decide what she wants to listen to go to bed. It is so cute. And then we do have blackout curtains in their rooms, but their rooms don't stay totally dark in the middle of the day. And we don't always have the noise machines on as loud as they can go. And we've gone places, and either we've forgotten the noise machines or we forgot to turn them on, and they'll sleep without the noise machines. It's just we have to be a little bit better about not making loud noises because they'll get jolted awake by a sudden sound. Not because
yeah, we have 2
quiet.
dogs, so and the dogs tend to bark at their own shadow.
Yeah, so like the other day, Lily was finally napping because Lily is in the middle of nap strikes now. And she was finally napping on the couch, and there's something going on outside. And both dogs run onto the couch next to Lily and start barking out the window. And Lily does not flinch or move at all. She's just still sleeping. And I'm like, dogs, shush, stop it. And then Lily starts to move. And I'm like, you do you, dogs, but shut up. She did not care.
I think I looked out the window and there was nothing there.
There was a leaf. There was a squirrel trying to attack our property. So with Elliot, we had more of a routine since we had done it before with Lily. But we had an actual newborn who wanted to cluster feed instead of a 2-week-old child. So those first few nights, Elliot woke up a lot more than we were used to. But he was cute. He was learning. He was growing.
Surprisingly, he didn't even wake up his big sister.
No, and Lily would totally sleep through him crying.
Yeah.
She still sleeps through him crying. And I'm like, how do you do that? He'll sleep through her crying. Guess if you're used to it.
Our kids love sleep, though.
They really do. So with him, I also set alarms about every 3 hours. And maybe I made it 2 weeks. I don't even think I made it 2 weeks setting an alarm for him. Because he was a pretty chunky kid. And of course, at his first checkup, they're like, yeah, he's lost like a quarter or half a pound. You're going to need to bring him back in a week for another checkup so we can make sure that he's gaining weight. And I was like freaking out. Oh my goodness. This kid needs to like get bigger. What's going on? And then at his 1.5 week checkup, he had gained 1.5 pounds. Like he had gained a pound over his birth weight. And I was like, you know what? You're fine. You will let me know when you're hungry. I'm not setting these alarms anymore. I'm going to sleep that extra 20 minutes or whatever it is.
But he did. He did wake you up.
He did. He was, and he still is, very insistent on when he wants food.
I don't know anyone who's like that.
I have no idea where he gets it from. Certainly not his mother, who eats a lot.
No, I wouldn't even say that. I would say
who gets hangry. Certainly not after his mother, who gets hangry. So Elliot didn't get as many chest naps as Lily did because I couldn't necessarily like have him lay on my chest for 2 hours when I have an 18-month-old running around the house. But he did get very loud and active nap spots because I would put him in a sleep sack and he'd be on the chaise while like I was watching TV or running around with Lily in the living room. Yeah, usually it would end up being he'd sleep on the chaise because he couldn't roll yet. I could like corner him in with pillows and Lily wasn't always getting up on the couch, or at least if she tried to get up on the couch, I had a delay versus him being on the floor where they would always be at the same level. I tried to put him in the swing, but he was not a fan of the swing. And Lily was a big fan of putting her dolls in the swing. So she'd like try to pull him out of the swing to put her dolls in the swing. And no, you can't do that, honey.
Poor guy.
But he did like the bouncer and she liked to read him books while he was in the bouncer. So that was really cute. And he didn't get a lot of floor time to try to keep him safe from his loving, but unaware of her size and strength, big sister. She really liked to give him hugs and try to pick him up.
She still does, actually.
She still tries to give him, yeah, she still gives him very questionable hugs.
We were upstairs and after Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and I told Lily, give your brother a hug because he's going to bed. And she went around and, squeezed him. Mm-hmm. And I heard a...
Yeah, she gives kisses now, too. It's so cute.
She kissed her baby brother goodnight.
Mm-hmm. So Elliot started napping in his crib earlier because, one, I knew more about how to get children to nap in their cribs, sleep sacks. Lots and lots of sleep sacks. And I needed to make sure he was safe while I was doing things with his big sister. So, like, he'd nap in the chaise or or in his crib versus Lily got a lot of naps in the swing or on the bouncer or on the floor mat.
Yeah.
But he could still sleep through anything.
When Elliot was born, we were kind of in a bind with the whole sleeping situation.
Yes.
He was originally, just like Lily, he was in the bassinet off to the side of you.
Mm-hmm.
right there. And then Lily, meanwhile, was in the crib.
And I was not going to buy another crib. I did not buy another crib. I refused to have 2 cribs in the house.
Right. And we were anticipating Elliot to also...
I was going to try to get as close to 6 months as I could with him in the bassinet.
6 months? I was going to say 3 months. I was anticipating 3 months because that's how
I
long
was
Lily...
planning for 3 months because that's when Lily kicked herself out, hoping for something closer to 6.
Yeah, because we weren't quite sure how Lily would react to a big girl bed.
Yeah, well, it was a toddler bed at that point, and it was very hit or miss as to whether or not we could get her to nap in the toddler bed.
Right. So right around this time when Elliot was ready to move full-time to the crib, which would mean Lily does not have a bed, our neighbor across the street who has 3 kids, she was like, hey, do you want a toddler bed?
And I said, yes, please.
That saved us from buying a crib.
Mm-hmm.
I guess during nap time, during the early parts of Elliot's life, he slept in the crib.
Yep.
And then Lily would sleep in the toddler bed.
We would try to get her to sleep in the toddler bed.
And at first it was
going okay. Then it got to the point where you would have to get her to fall asleep in your arms and then transfer her to the toddler bed. And that wouldn't always work. And then we just kind of had to give up on it and go to a pack and play.
Yeah. So Lily didn't have a bed
Nope.
for up until recently, like I would say
Mhm.
September, or about 2 years old for her.
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay.
Did you read the doc?
No.
Oh my goodness.
It's a conversation, not a me reading. But I just wanted to say that we were kind of in a weird situation because we had an 18-month-old and a newborn. Somehow we got away with
Not having 2 cribs.
Not having 2 cribs.
So, as infants, both Lily and Elliot learned how to roll onto their belly very quickly and loved sleeping on their stomachs. We're not super huge fans of extended tummy time, but loved to sleep on their stomachs. And still sleep on their stomachs about 75% of the time. Lily's getting closer to 50-50 between other positions and her tummy, but Elliot, it's still 90% of the time on his belly.
And we put him on his back originally.
Yes.
Because back is best and SIDS and all that.
Yes. But then he's like, whoop, I'm going to roll on my belly now. And it's like, well, when they can do that, you just kind of got to let them do it and make sure that their little arms are free. So if they want to roll back, they can. So as infants, they slept a lot in their cribs. Usually I would wake them up in the morning if I had to go to work, but would let them sleep in if it was one of my days off. Because our kids like to sleep until about 8 a.m., if not 9. Elliot didn't wake up until 9 this morning. He wanted to sleep in.
Or he was quiet.
Yeah, or he was just quiet. That's what happens when you're the second child. If you're quiet, we just assume that you're fine. So the kids would get some boob juice and some snuggles, and they would go to bed about 8 p.m. And then they would start to get cranky if they were up past 8. Really, we noticed it a lot with Lily, and even more so with Elliot. If it was hitting 8:30 and she wasn't in bed yet, she would start to get cranky. Elliot's a little bit better now, but he was like 8 p.m. on the dot. Didn't matter if it was halfway through an episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Like, he was going to struggle bus through the end and like, okay, you need to put me in my bed now because I would like to sleep.
Yeah, and I've noticed this a lot as well. I mentioned that I remember walking around with Lily, singing to her, playing Baby Metallica, trying to get her to fall asleep in my arms so I could put her in bed.
Yeah.
In her crib. Elliot, he doesn't like it when I, try to snuggle him.
He doesn't super like it when I try to snuggle with him either.
Like, if he's ready for bed, he's ready for bed.
He will yeet out of your arms to try to get into the crib.
Yeah.
It's, you do you, little dude.
It's like the complete opposite.
Yeah. So they didn't wake up a ton in the middle of the night at this point, but if they were cutting a tooth or were having a growth spurt or just feeling off, they would wake up at least once in the middle of the night. And we had a few times where they would not want to go back to bed. But for the most part, it was, here's some milk, let's chill, have some snuggle time, and then we could put him back to bed. So that's like infants. At about 6-ish months old, Lily still loved her sleep sacks, but Elliot not so much. Now, was it because at this point it was the middle of summer? Is it because he's a chunky baby? Is it because he doesn't really like to snuggle? I don't know. But at about 4 or 5 months old, he was done with sleep sacks. So like Lily, we use like Velcro sleep sacks. So you can put both their arms in. You can put one arm out. You can put both arms out. So when Lily was really little, when both kids were really little, we would Velcro their arms down to their sides. And then as they started getting more wiggly, well, here you get one arm that you can do stuff with. And as they get more wiggly, here you have 2 arms that you can do stuff with. So if you want to roll over, you can. Elliot was pretty much like, okay, I don't need the sleep sack anymore. Lily still liked the compression of the Velcro. So even though her arms weren't in, we would still Velcro her into her sleep sack. And I think that sleep sack was another cue that, oh, hey, it's time for me to go to bed now. At around 6 months old with Lily was when we started introducing an episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse before bed. Because what were we thinking? Why? Why did we have to start that tradition? And she seemed to enjoy her little show. Because at about that same age was when Elliot would stay up with us to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse instead of going to bed before or during Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse was something that Lily would actually watch for like the half hour, and she'd like sit and watch it versus like halfway through getting up and walk around. But she would still get up and move around the first few months we watched Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. We were still having some milk as a last pre-bedtime activity. Occasionally I would sing songs before bed, but usually just when they're cranky. And we were definitely more in a flow as far as bedtime goes. The kids were used to being put into bed awake by 9-ish months old and would fall asleep on their own. Because as a tip, because I was doing this with Lily and didn't realize that it was a thing that you should be doing until I read it somewhere and was like, oh, I'm already doing that. Sweet. So as tip, put the kid to bed about 75% of the way asleep or slightly wake them up as you put them in the crib, because this teaches them that their crib is where they fall asleep and is for bedtime. Versus, oh, I woke up in my crib and have no recollection of falling asleep in my crib. It helps teach them that their crib is where they should fall asleep. And then, I mean, as Sid's stuff too, limit toys or have 0 toys in their bed, but also so they don't have something to play with that keeps them up, because you want them to just like calm down and then conk.
We do not follow this. I mean, at 6 months we did.
Yeah. As Elliot got closer to a year old, he would have a stuffed animal or 2 in his bed. Now that he's a year old, he has like 6 stuffed animals in his bed and a blanket. Because at about a year old is when we started giving the kids swaddle blankets, or just like mini blankets to have at night to get them used to having a blanket as opposed to just warm pajamas when they go to bed. And then when Lily was like 18-ish months old, I think is when we started adding in a pillow, because some people do it all at once. Lily didn't really seem like she needed a pillow.
I don't think we gave her a pillow when she was in the pack and play.
She had the little pillow that she got from your sister.
It wasn't a
full-size pillow.
It wasn't the pillow that she has now.
Now she has a full-size pillow. And then about a year old is when we also started transitioning from boob juice to milk. First, we used warmed up milk, and then we slowly transitioned to just milk straight from the fridge. And so it would be like you get warm milk in your bedroom, where it's dark, and maybe we have the noise machine on already. And then slowly it transitioned to, you get milk while we're watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. And then we're just going to put you into bed with less pomp and circumstance than when you were younger.
And we never put our kids in the crib with a bottle and then walked away.
No. And like the kids have not drank liquids in their beds, unless if they were like super sick. I think like one of the times Lily was sick, I put her in there was a bottle or like a container of water in bed with her. So if she got thirsty in the middle of the night, she had water. Because I was like, you're dehydrated, kid. You need to drink more water. Have all of the access to water. Now I'm like, no liquids 2 hours before bed. Starting to potty train. At also about a year old was when we started to mix up what we watched before bed. So like Reading Rainbow. Lately it's been Scooby-Doo. On the weekend, maybe we'll watch an actual movie. We might not finish it. And then bedtime was still 8-ish, but the kids were getting less cranky if they stayed up a little bit longer. So if like we were out and about, we could push bedtime to 9 or 9:30-ish, but not all the time. So at about 18 months was when we attempted to move Lily to a toddler bed, and it worked for a hot second until it didn't. So then we just put her in a pack and play in her room until at about 2 years old, she started climbing out of the pack and play. So we went back to trying to use the toddler bed.
Yeah, she only climbed out of it once, but we were afraid she would remember.
She did remember for a hot second, and then I made her forget again.
Though apparently at my mom's house, they do use the pack and play.
Yeah, she'll still sleep in the
Sometimes.
pack and play at her mom's house, but I don't think she would tolerate it for us anymore. And then also at 18 months, Lily started to move her bedtime closer to 9 instead of 8.
But it fluctuates.
It still fluctuates.
Yeah.
Tonight she was in bed by like 8:15, but she
Yeah.
also didn't nap. At 2-ish years is when we put Lily into her, quote, big girl bed, which really was the best because she did not want to fall asleep on her own in that toddler bed. And she didn't know how to stay in her bed when she was sleepy. So we could just lay in her bed with her to teach her, like, this is where you sleep.
And this is a twin bed.
Yes, it is a twin bed. We could have just gotten a mattress and put it on the floor, but family was like, oh, you can't just put a mattress on the floor. Like, you have to have an actual bed frame and stuff. So I bought Lily a really cute twin bed at IKEA that within like the next 3 months, I'm going to flip into a loft bed, I think. Because her and Elliot can do that ladder, and they're getting better at it. And then she has her own little clubhouse. And she can have a little reading nook underneath it. It's going to be adorable. I'm going to get fairy lights for it. It's going to be so cute.
I think she's too young for that.
She is too young for it right now, but she's getting closer to it. And so now that even though she's 2.5 years old, we still start the night in bed with her. We could possibly be more adamant about locking her in her room without one of us in there since it's pretty toddler proofed. But we like the late night snuggles. Because some people, what they'll do is they will say, okay, it's bedtime, put their kid in bed, close and lock the door, and then just let the kid figure it out and fall asleep wherever the kid falls asleep. I'm not a huge fan of that, though.
Especially our house is kind of small. The walls are thin.
Yeah, she'll wake up half the neighborhood trying to do that.
Oh, she'll wake up at Elliot more
Yeah.
likely. And
But-
we'll have 2 kids a week.
Yeah. But we don't stay all night in the room with her unless if she's sick, which we've done with both kids. So I've slept with both kids in a share, not at the same time, but like while they're sick. Like, here, you're just going to sleep on mommy's chest tonight. So your head's elevated and you can get some good snuggles. So you get good sleep, but mommy will not. It was pretty adorable the first few nights she slept in her bed because she'd wander into our bedroom in a daze in the middle of the night. And we just kind of like have to calmly walk her back to her bed and sit with her for 5 minutes until she fell back asleep. And then we could go back to bed in our room. But I swear one night I heard her crying daddy at the bottom of the stairs
Yeah.
because she woke up, she walked downstairs, was met by 2 closed gates because we don't have a gate at the top of our stairs. We have one at the bottom of the stairs because the kids don't spend a ton of time upstairs. And she's just like, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, Joe, I think, where's Lily? And Joe found her at the bottom of the stairs and had to help push sleepy Lily back to her bedroom. It was so cute. And now that Elliot's getting bigger, he's starting to get more interested in his big sister's bed. He likes to run all over it, is attempting to jump on it because monkey see, monkey do. I am in no way ready for 2 of them to be wandering around in the middle of the night. So he is staying in that crib for a while.
Till he's 5.
Yes. Big things to remember is that this too shall pass. Most of the time, what children are going through is a phase. Growth spurts are a thing that can cause them to wake up more often because they want to eat more often to prepare for getting bigger. Sleep regression is a thing. We didn't have too much sleep regression, but our kids also are very much in need of their beauty rest. If you wake them up before they would like to wake up, you have a cranky child for about an hour. And then they will consider talking to you after they've had something to eat and have gotten some snuggles.
This is true. The
Mhm.
other day we had to wake the kids up because you had to go to school. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, I go to school now. And because I had to drop the kids off, so we woke them up earlier than usual. And they're
Lily just went under her covers
yeah.
like she was a teenager.
It's so now that she has like an actual bed with actual sheets, though she still just uses a fleece blanket. She doesn't really sleep under the comforter or her sheets yet. She's getting closer to it though. She's starting to understand that she can do that. She will just pull stuff over her face and refuse to get up. So you'll have to turn on the light in the hall and open the door and say, Lily, it's time to get up. And she's like, and she rolls over. And then you maybe poke her a little bit and some more, Then you turn on the light in her room and she tries to super burrow. And you just like pick up the sleeping Lily. And as you're changing her diaper, she will slowly wake up. It's pretty funny.
I think that pretty much covers it unless there's something else you want to talk about.
Nope, that's most of what I wanted to cover. So, Joe, now is the part of the show where you try to make me laugh with a dad joke because you are a dad. And apparently that's what dads do.
I have a good one this week.
You do?
I do. Are you ready for it?
I guess so.
All right. It's sleep themed, so we're staying on theme.
That's good. Your dad jokes are usually on theme, if nothing else.
Why did the man eat yeast and shoe polish before he went to sleep?
Yeast? Like bread yeast and shoe polish?
Yeah, why did the man eat yeast and shoe polish before he went to sleep?
Because he has a mental disorder?
No, so that he could rise and shine in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
So that does it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us at Craft Parenting Podcast on all of those platforms. You can also get a hold of us via email at craftparentingpodcast@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Make sure to share the show. It's what helps our show grow. If you'd like to send us stuff, such as fan mail, craft supplies, or any sanity you happen to have lying around, we have a P.O. box.
And all this information is available on our website, which is www.craftparentingpodcast.com.
That's where we post the show notes. Plus, we've been writing blog posts about some of the stuff that doesn't make it into the podcast.
I just wrote about our experience going to Humble Monk.
That was a lot of fun.
Over in Northside. That's brewery number 2 out of 12.
We got this.
And of course, I have 2 more to rate. So we did go to 4 breweries. I just only wrote about 2. Need to get on that.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So make sure you get to that blog and read up all about that. But there's a bunch of other stuff as well, all about parenting or family adventures. Some really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you want to follow me personally, you may do so on Instagram at craftparentingjoe.
And I am at Caroline Creates Crafts.
On Instagram.
On Instagram, yes.
As well. And you have a Facebook too.
I do also have a Facebook.
That's just Caroline's Creative Crafts.
Oh, yeah. I'm really bad about plugging myself. That's Caroline's Creative Crafts on Facebook.
All right. And with that, I'm Joe.
And I'm Caroline.
We'll see you next time on the Craft Parenting Podcast.
Yes, ideally you hit the big red button first.
Well, you see, I had it down, and then you took my job from me.
I'm sorry, I did the thing again. And then I did it again. I did not take your job from you. You handed me the board after you set everything up and said, I will take care of the children, record a mom's thing. And that's what we did.